Hey guys, it's Luke, and in this video I'm going to be recommending books to read for you English learners. But before we get into that, make sure you subscribe, and if you haven't already, make sure to check out the courses in the links in the description. All right, let's start. One of the most common questions that I get from students is, if I want to improve my English, what books should I read? But it's a really difficult question because we're not all at the same level. Some of us are maybe really good at English, some maybe a little lower, and it's all fine, but that makes it hard to recommend books. Also, we all have different interests. Maybe some of you like nonfiction. Maybe some of you want to find a book for your kids, English books for your kids that you can read to them. So what I'm going to do in this video is recommend some books at different levels and for different interests. And hopefully you'll find something that fits you. So what we're going to do today is go to a very famous bookstore in Manhattan called Strand Bookstore. And it's really good. They have a huge selection of books. We're actually on the way there right now. So when we get there, we'll look around and I will make some recommendations for books to read for different interests and different levels. So one cool thing about Strand Books, maybe you can see behind me, there are a lot of bookshelves. One cool thing is that they don't just sell new books, they sell secondhand books, they sell new books, they sell very rare books, and you can actually bring your books here and sell them to Strand Books. They'll give you money for your book, so it's pretty cool. So I'm going to check out some of these books outside, but I'm guessing most of the things I want to recommend are actually in the store. Because I mean, if they put it outside, somebody's going to steal something, right? They know that some of these books are going to get stolen, of course, right? Must be. Book about gynecology for 48 cents? That's a great deal. The Deep End of the Ocean, 48 cents. Now that's a deal. Webster's New Pocket Spanish Dictionary, 48 cents.
Now that's a deal.
Okay, I'm gonna actually go in because most of the books that I want to suggest are probably inside. I'm going in. So we'll start with nonfiction. I like to read about history, I like to read about science, I like to read about biology, and I like to read about business, like entrepreneurship and leadership. So I want to make a couple of recommendations within nonfiction based around interest and level. Recommendation number one, The Elements of Style. This book, you can see it's very thin. This is an absolute must-have book for anybody who wants to improve their writing. For native English speakers who want to improve their writing, for non-native English speakers who want to improve their writing. My father is a writer and he bought this book for me when I was in high school. I have read this book probably 14 times. It's easy to go through, it's not that hard to understand, and it can teach you how to make your writing clean and simple, easy to understand. Now, for those of you interested in business, especially entrepreneurship and leadership, there are two really great books that I would strongly recommend. The first one I've read probably 3 times. It's called 0 to 1. 0 to 1. It's a great book about how to start a business. It's about startups, and it's got all of the basics, the things that you need to know, along with a lot of real-life examples to really understand the whole process of starting a company, and also it includes some of the mistakes that you probably want to avoid when you start a company. So this is a really good book, and it's actually pretty easy to read. It's written in a very simple style. So I think if you can understand me speaking now, you should be able to read this book without much difficulty. It doesn't have a lot of difficult or strange words in it. Pretty easy to read. There's a great book about leadership that I really like. It's one of the best books that I read for the first time last year. It's called Multipliers. It's about how to be a leader in a way that makes the people who work for you or who you work with happy, so that everyone is trying their best and enjoying working with you, right? So it's a great book. Again, written in a pretty simple style. I think if you can understand me, you should be able to understand this book and get a lot out of this book if you're interested in the topic. Now, I said I like history, and I do. I really like history. But there's one history book that is my favorite, and it's really the history of humanity. And I would really only recommend this book in English to you if you're at a pretty high level of English. It's actually not that easy to read. So if you feel like reading easier books is a little difficult, maybe keep reading those, and then once you get to a little bit of a higher level, you can read this book. It's called Sapiens. Sapiens. Now, if you are at a little bit of a higher level and you can read English pretty easily, this is an awesome book. It's extremely interesting. It's very thought-provoking, and it might give you a lot of insights about where we came from as humans and why we are the way we are. And if you find this book too difficult, pick it up in your language. Read it in your language. It's that good. This is probably one of my favorite books. Okay, now some of you might like fiction, and I like fiction too. I've read a lot of novels, and I like novels. I said I usually read nonfiction these days, but sometimes I do read novels. But there are some classics that I would like to recommend. Now, I'm not going to show you Harry Potter because I think everybody knows that Harry Potter is a good choice for people who like Harry Potter, but not everybody likes that. Is it a good book to read if you're an English learner, Harry Potter, that series? Yes, it is. It is. I'm not going to show you that one though. First, I want to talk about a classic. The Hobbit is really one of the most important books in the category of fantasy. It's a novel, and you've probably seen the movies. This is the book that the movies are based on. The interesting thing is this was originally written kind of as a kid's book, so it is a bit easier to read. Now, there might be a few things that are kind of outdated in terms of the style, but it's still not too difficult to read, a really interesting story, and you can get a feeling for the deeper culture of literature because it's such an important book. Harry Potter, The Hobbit, those are fantasy, but there are some novels that are more realistic, and some people like that style too. Ernest Hemingway was a really great author, and his writing style is really famous for being really clear and really simple, but yet very powerful. So one book that I would recommend is this one. You probably have heard of it before. It's called The Old Man and the Sea. It's short, it doesn't take long to read, the sentences are clear and easy to understand, so I would really recommend this one for lower level students. If you feel like your English isn't that good, maybe lower level students who want to read something, learn new words, and get a feeling for English grammar. This is the perfect book. Now, if you have kids, you probably want your son or daughter to start learning English as early as possible. The earlier they start reading, the better their English is going to be later on. So I want to recommend 3 kids books from little kids to a little bit older that I think are really, really good. The first one is a series of books by an author named Dr. Seuss. And you may have seen me talk about Dr. Seuss before. I love Dr. Seuss, and there are many Dr. Seuss books. This one is my favorite. This is one of my favorite books ever. It's called Green Eggs and Ham. Now, it's an old book, but it's still really entertaining. Also, most books by Dr. Seuss actually rhyme, so you can get a feeling for how words fit together, and that can make your kids more creative with English. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them, Sam I Am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Would you eat them here or there? I would not eat them here or there. I would not eat them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I Am. So Dr. Seuss you can probably start reading when your kids are maybe 2, 3, maybe even younger. Another one that you can start reading to your kids at a very, very young age is this one, classic, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And it's mostly a picture book, right? Mostly. But it's a good way to learn basic words. So if you want to teach your kids basic words with pictures, this is a great one. So finally, for kids' books is one that I actually read with many of my students, and it's this one. Actually, it's a series of books as well. They're called Junie B. Jones books, and they're for kids maybe 6 and older, so a little bit older, and you can see that less pictures, more words. So it's a little bit more difficult than, for example, Dr. Seuss. So I would really recommend Junie B. Jones because the stories are quite funny, and usually it's related to kids stuff, school stuff, so your kids will be able to relate to the main character who is, as I said, very, very funny. And if your kids enjoy the stories, if they like the stories, then obviously it's going to be easier for them to learn and remember the new words. All right, guys, well, those are my recommendations for books to read, at least for this video. Hopefully, at least 1 or 2 of them are the right fit for you. But if not, if you want another recommendation, let me know in the comments. Let me know your level and your interests, and I should be able to recommend something that's the right fit. I really love to read. I read a lot. All of the books that I recommended in this video, I've read at least twice. If you're going to really learn English, I think it's very important to read, because if you read, you can get a feeling not only for the words and the phrases and the sentence structure, but also the culture. But the problem is, a lot of the times we read things that are boring. If you're an English learner, you might think, I hate reading, it's so boring, it's so hard, right? I know, it's easy to give up if you're reading the wrong thing. So it's very important to read, but find something you like. Find something you're passionate about. If you want to turn the page, then you're going to be learning a lot faster. And if you're learning faster, then your English is going to improve faster. Okay, so enjoy your books, and I will see you in the next one.